Alex Mercer, you killed my wife and my daughter. You turned me into this monster. Now you spread the virus, and you send your pets to kill me?
We've caught up here with Dave Fracchia, who is the studio vice president of Radical Entertainment. I got that right?
That's right.
And we're meant to talk a little bit about the switch from Mercer to Heller in Prototype 2.
Right.
And let's go back just under 3 years ago when you launched Prototype, and sort of what kind of feedback did you get, and what do you want to change for the sequel?
Well, so people loved the game, right? And what they really loved was the awesome powers, the feeling that they could become this kind of ultimate shape-shifting badass, right? That was just predominant in the game. And then in terms of things that people kind of criticized, there were people that loved Alex Mercer. There were some people that didn't like Alex Mercer as much, or thought that his story was maybe not as interesting. And then there were those that felt that the world may not have been quite as rich as it could have been. And then those that felt that maybe the missions maybe were a little too repetitive. So we took all of those comments together in looking at Prototype 2, and I think we've done a very, very good job of addressing all those.
So speaking of that, when I just played the game a little bit, and I think the tone has changed a lot in how you tell the story and what kind of world this is.
Right.
Could you expand on that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're looking at the virus which had the first outbreak in the first game. We've now got a second outbreak that really has devastated Manhattan. So Manhattan itself has become this what we call the red zone, which is really just fully infected, right? There's a war zone going between the military and the infected. There's very few humans alive in that zone. And now we've got two new zones as well. We've got the green zone, which is the headquarters of Blackwatch and Gentek. Relatively infection-free and clean, relatively safe, looks more normal. Still under military law, though. And then the yellow zone, the quarantine zone, where many of the infected and many of the people that survived the red zone have been brought into. And now that zone has become very overpopulated, very full of despair. And of course, Gentek and Blackwatch having carte blanche means that they're conducting experiments on that human population. So the three zones are all very unique.
So one thing that I felt with the first game, and I think it's both a plus and a negative, is that once you got into combat, it could be total mayhem, total chaos. And it's nice in one way, but at the same time, you feel a little bit like you're losing control, and you can't keep track of every enemy, and it's a little bit too chaotic at times. Was that something that you looked to address with the sequel as well?
It was, because we realized when you got into combat and it got amped up really, really high, it did feel like you were kind of sometimes mashing your way out of the danger if you could, or having to just run away because you couldn't deal with the scale of the battle. So what we wanted to do is put the control of the battle back in the hands of the player. And so one of the things that we did was we've got better enemy tells. So now when a creature's attacking you, you can see it coming in, so you can have time to do something about it. Heavy artillery have lasers and audio cues that let you know you're going to be hit. So if it's coming from the side or from behind, you have the choice to be strategic about whether you tactically dodge out of the way, whether you use shields to block it, whether even use shields to basically deflect rockets back at enemies. And then the other part of it was the use of the powers and the impact on enemies. Some enemies respond better to other attacks than others. So if you got claws, great for fleshy creatures, very fast. If you have hammer fist, great for armored vehicles, but slower. So if you take out the slow one and you got a fast creature coming at you, you're a little more vulnerable. If you take out the claws and go on a tank, not going to do much damage. So now you have to start to vary up and think about how you're going to do your attacks. And then being able to give you two powers at once, I mean, you now can vary them without having to go back to your power wheel all the time, because you can go after the heavy artillery and the fleshy creatures with those two powers. And of course, by switching them up, you get great combos as well. Now, in terms of the enemies, we've also got great staged attacks, so you can really tell which enemies are going to be the most kind of dangerous at that point in time. And all that together actually makes it possible to feel like you're in control of combat. In fact, we dropped you in to the red zone with all the powers, and did you feel like you were in control?
Yeah, I did feel like it was chaotic like before, but I did also feel like I had a better view of where my enemies were, where the main objectives were at that time.
Right, then we've succeeded.
We'll see. When I play it all the game through, I'll let you know.
Of course.
But one thing that I also felt was the decision to turn Mercer into a sort of adversary or of sorts. It's not quite clear to me yet exactly what role Alex Mercer plays in the game. But why did you want to do that, and sort of what does Heller add?
Well, so what we realized, first of all, is that the story of the prototype is the story of the Blacklight virus. That's really the star. It's just told through different people in terms of their impact. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to be able to kind of retell the story from Heller's perspective. In doing so, it allowed us to actually get some really great character development, to create some background and some sort of kind of emotional connection to Heller, right? Him having lost his family. People can relate to loss and relate to the fact that they may do things that are out of character or at all costs to go after whoever's done that to their family. And in transforming Mercer into the antagonist, what we did was, first of all, be able to keep Mercer with his powers. Right? If we kept Mercer, we either had to deal with these godlike powers and find a way to progress, which may have gone into the uber fantasy kind of land, or take them away, which we didn't think was really fair. So we ended up with this kind of great collision of ideas where we've got a new protagonist. Let's just tell the story again about the virus. But we can tell the story of where Alex is going at the same time through Heller's perspective, and how those stories collide. As you said, maybe not really that clear who's the enemy and who's not. And in fact, really, if you take a look at even great film or great stories, even those people that you think are the antagonists are doing what they believe is right. And even the protagonists usually have some complexity in them that may make them do things that may not necessarily always be good as well. So I think those collision of the stories, the prototype against prototype, all that stuff just was so epic and came together so well that I think we've really got something powerful here.
Another thing, when I was dropped in the red zone, that struck me was that the diversity and things to do without going into the main story quest. It's just so much more in there in the game.
Oh yeah, and what's important about having all that in the game is the way you actually even get it. In the first game, you could buy all your powers as experience points, and sometimes you could do that halfway through the game and get all these powers, of which you maybe only used a few of those things, or there may be something which is favored and very powerful, and you just kept using it, which adds to repetition, actually. So what we've done a good job of is really staging the progression of the character so that any major abilities or major upgrades come through the story missions in consuming key enemies, for example. And then when it comes to evolving the character, that's done through the gameplay, through experience. Right? So experience allows you to potentially expand your health bar or your regeneration time or things like that. And then the open world mutations that are tweaks and changes to your abilities, that can make your character a little more customized as opposed to another character. Those add another little more depth into it and also draw you into the open world. So all of that, the how alive the world is in terms of not only graphically, but the ambience. You've got civilians and military that interact with each other. They interact with you. It means that going on into the open world is interesting without having to even go into a mission sometimes, because you may only have 15 minutes or half an hour. You just want to screw around and have fun with your powers, and you can do it. And there are things there that allow you to. There's stuff to work on. There's stuff to find. And then you can, of course, amp things up if you wish as well.
Yeah, because at any time that you were in there, it's like, okay, you got 150 yards to that black box or to that field ops or...
all the collectibles. Yeah, so besides the open world missions where you can find the Blackwatch communication vehicles and hack into Blacknet, or there's even layers which are kind of subterranean underground breeding grounds for the infected. They're all the collectibles.
I think I stumbled onto one of them and I was taken out of it.
We only want to show you so many things right now. We want to make sure there's some surprises. But yeah, the collectibles that you can find that actually will give you a little more information even about the fiction of the zones. All of it feeds into itself. There's the A story arc, the story, and there's the B side, the underlying other things that are going on that are really quite interesting.
So one thing that you talked about here, and that you haven't, I don't know if you haven't properly announced it yet, but you're doing something very special with the pre-order, with the sort of limited edition of Prototype 2. Could you go into that?
Sure. So this is called the Radnet edition, and it is exclusive. If you pre-order the game, you're guaranteed it. After that, it depends on how many are left, essentially the limited run. And what it does is that we first planned it by saying, if you're one of those early adopters that we want to reward, our greatest fans, we're going to give you something we wanted to call the ultimate unlock, which we're, of course, not saying what it is. And then we realized, let's put something more to it. Let's have some fun with it. Why does it need to just be some one thing we give away? Why not kind of give away gameplay? Why not give away some fun things to do? And so over 7 weeks after launch, we're going to unlock events and challenges, which are kind of like what we had in the first game, the fun glide events and ways to use your power that don't tie into the fiction. They're just simply a lot of fun. And then let's reward players for playing those events, and the reward for challenges that you're trying to beat your friend scores in leaderboards. So in the 7-week period after, for 5 of the 7 weeks, we unlock these events, challenges, and rewards. For 2 of them, they're time for you to catch up on the ones that have been unlocked so far, and we give you some great freebies, some Xbox avatars, some PS3 dynamic themes. And then at the end of those 7 weeks, if you've done those events and gotten those rewards, we'll give you the ultimate unlock.
It's a really cool extra, not just some extra weapons or extra armor or something like that you get with it, but actual sort of, an event basically that plays out over
Extra
7 weeks.
gameplay, right? Like extra fun games, because as gamers, we like gameplay, right?
So that means that if you want this, you better pre-order.
That's right.
All right. Okay, so Dave, it's been a pleasure talking to you. This game will be out early April.
April 24th.
April 24th. That's late April. All right.
Late April, that's okay.
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Mercer! It would have been quick, but now